Alright, what's going on, guys? And welcome everybody to another video on the channel. Hope you all are doing well. And today I want to sit down with you guys and talk to you a little bit about the situation that PUBG is facing at the minute. Something very mysterious is happening, and honestly, I want to just sit down and sort of have an open discussion about this, and we can discuss the problems and really what's going on with the games right now. And before we go any further, just as full disclosure, within the past month, I have been made a PUBG partner, and the reason I'm bringing this up is just to let you guys know that despite being made a PUBG partner, this does not influence my opinions in any way whatsoever. This is going to be straight from just my individual perspective, and no outside influences, whether PUBG partner or not, is going to affect what I say. I'm going to be absolutely honest in the things I discuss, and I'm going to give praise where praise is due and definitely criticize where it's necessary. Also, I'm just going to forewarn you, this may be a little bit of a longer video because there's a lot I want to talk about, and I feel like we all need to discuss as a community. So if you want to see more discussion, sit down videos like this, then show me by dropping a like rating. I'd appreciate it. So I've been thinking through the problems that PUBG's been having quite a lot over the past couple of weeks, and I've been trying to unite the two perspectives that seem to be the hardest to do. I wanted to unite the perspective of the hardcore players and the casual players, and if you're a person watching this video right now, chances are you're part of the hardcore group, because there are millions of casual gamers that never check Reddit or get on YouTube or anything, don't even know these kinds of videos exist, that just play the game and enjoy it, and we have to include those kind of people as well. But for those of you who are watching this video, we have to include ourselves within that vocal minority. And something very strange has happened with the release of Season 8. Sanhok Remastered being a just absolutely bombshell piece of content to come out. Honestly, the map is one of my favorite in a long time. And I would say that this season, just generally, as far as the quality of content, is as good as Erangel Remastered. I said that exactly when it came out, and I still feel that way upon its release. But even though I'm personally really loving this season, it's actually one of my favorite in a long time, and it's super refreshing. Despite my individual enjoyment of the season, that doesn't seem to be necessarily reflective of everybody else's opinions also. Despite them really hitting the nail on the head with this map, and I would just say the season as a whole this time around, the player count has still continued to drop and dwindle, and the question is why? We can see that since the beginning of 2020, it's continued on a downward spiral. With when the quarantine really began worldwide, then it did see a small increase because everybody's at home and more people were probably trying out games and stuff, and I think they had a free weekend as well. But immediately after that, it continued to drop again, and then you can see within the past 30 days, it's still continued on that downward trend, despite one of the most beautiful and I would say most requested maps coming back to the game. A lot of people were playing when, you know, original Sanhok came out, and I mean, the word was around, Sanhok's getting remastered, and the advertising was out there, the videos were being made. People kind of knew this thing was coming more or less, or I'd say players that even remotely check on it every now and again. And despite all that, it didn't really seem to have much effect as far as increasing the player count, which is odd. When Erangel Remastered came out, the game saw a huge spike in average players, at least for a while, but the same could not be said for this season. Every couple months, I like to refer to Google search trends to see how well a game is performing just in terms of its overall interest and popularity, and, you know, every once in a while, I'll update you guys on what PUBG's Google search trends is looking like and why there might be an increase or decrease, and if we look at it here, we can see that the game has more or less just flatlined out. It's not really had any significant jumps or decreases in interest since roughly last year, so you can read that one of two ways. It's very complicated, and also Google search trends is not an all-encompassing factor, let's say, in terms of how popular a game may or may not be, but at least it's the numbers we have right now. You can read this in one way, thinking that, you know, it's a good thing that the interest in PUBG doesn't really drop at all. There seems to be this solid foundation of a player base that really doesn't go anywhere, and that's pretty dedicated to the game, but also at the same time, despite really what they're doing, there doesn't seem to be any increases in interest or bringing much new players in either. And both of those perspectives are correct. It just really depends on which angle you're looking at it from. So while the overall interest of PUBG has remained pretty stable over the past like year and a half roughly, the player count on PC, and I would assume console as well, has continued to dip in a downward trend, although slowly but surely. And I've been really thinking about this over the past like week and a half, and I've ultimately come to the conclusion, no matter which way I try to turn it, that PUBG is a game that's kind of gotten too big for itself. And there's a lot of factors that are contributing to that, and I may not even have all of them thought through. It's like, these things are complicated. The downward trend, or let's say the problems that PUBG is having, these things are super complex, and for any one of us to think that we have all the answers and all the solutions, or can even dive diagnose the problem 100% correctly, I'm afraid is just pretty naive. But I'll present what I think, at least what I've thought through anyways, and you can let me know what you think about it. So firstly, bots, matchmaking, and ranked mode. These three things are all intertwined, but are equally as complicated as one another. These are manifestations of a problem that began long ago, when new maps were being added to the game, and the player count, would drop just for natural reasons, not even of any particular bad thing, but just because a lot of casual gamers would maybe try PUBG once, especially when it was at its peak, and then, they would play it a few times, then probably never touch it again. But when this was sort of happening, new ways to play were being added, while simultaneously the mass pool of players was dropping a little bit. So you're spreading your player base a little bit thin, and that's normal for games, that happens. However, when that process goes on too long, you end up getting two things: a player base that is really good at the game that sort of shuts down any brand new player, thus stifling growth of the game, and then also losing the options to play the map and the mode that you exactly want to play because of a spread too thin player base. So what was the logical conclusion of this? Well, let's make a normal mode where there can be bots that fill up the lobby, so you can pretty much play an infinite number of maps and an infinite number of ways, and then ranked mode for people that only want to play with real players and that want to take the game a little bit more seriously. On paper, that works. Like, that's completely fine. However, what really ended up happening, ranked mode was kind of a disaster, and it's not a complete failure as an implementation, but it's got a lot of problems, and normal mode is really not exactly normal mode anymore. You're gonna play with bots, but you still don't even really get to choose the map or the experience you want to play more or less. Now, I was gonna make an entire video about ranked mode, but I feel like we should just talk about it here. So again, in theory, ranked mode is a playlist where you play with 64 people, absolutely no bots, and you can play for rank, and it has slightly different altered rule settings, and you actually need to use an SMS number and some other verification steps to actually play ranked mode. This should, in theory, keep cheaters out. Again, that all looks good on paper. Ranked mode, however, really didn't see any decrease in cheaters. In fact, maybe a little bit of an influx as cheaters looked for a little bit of a challenge. Ranked mode also does not have a duo or solos playlist, and I'll talk about why here in a second, but if you're a player that enjoys playing by themselves or just with one other buddy, and personally, I actually think PUBG is best played in a solo experience or a duo experience. You can't actually do that unless playing solo squads. Truth be told, I really don't even bother with ranked mode because, again, I like playing solos and duos, which isn't an option there, and cheaters don't really seem to be any less prevalent in ranked either, so there ultimately doesn't seem to be a point for me. I normally stick to the regular modes, and within the matchmaking of regular modes, it's not much better here either, and we don't even get map selection, and there's a reason for that. And it's, in fact, almost the exact same reason why there's no solo or duo ranked. This is because if they were to add solo and duo ranked as a playlist tomorrow, let's just say they added it in, we would actually be right back in the exact same situation that caused bots to be added in the first place. The player base is, again, spread too thin, and there's too many different ways to play PUBG. So to think about this, visualize the entire player base of PUBG. Let's just say 1 million players on average, just to be safe, right? Let's say 1 million as the overall net pool of players. Now, we have to divide that a couple times. We need to divide that by world server. We need to divide that by preference, either first or third person. We need to then further divide that into map. We need then to divide that into either normal or ranked mode. You can see where this gets really, really divided. And unfortunately, with the implementation of ranked mode and then separating that from normal, that creates yet another fracture, yet another division of separating that player base, thus kind of, backing up my point that I believe the game has gotten too big for itself. It's not necessary, again, it's not, I don't think it's that the player count comparatively to other BRs is low, although that is part of it. It's just that the game isn't consolidated enough, and like you can't really reconsolidate this game without hurting the experience. They couldn't just delete third person perspective and expect all of those guys to go play FPP. A lot of them would just quit playing entirely. You couldn't get rid of any maps at this point and not expect to make some people upset about that. Like, you couldn't just remove Erangel tomorrow and say it's never coming back, but that would consolidate that player base a little bit. But again, Erangel is personally my favorite, and I'm sure many of your guys' favorite maps, and you would not be super stoked to hear that your favorite map is just being yoinked out of the rotation. Now, we haven't even talked about cheaters, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I want to finish the discussion on bots. I see the sentiment on the internet a lot, on Twitter and on Reddit, that bots are single-handedly the reason that PUBG is not fun anymore, or it ruined the game for them. And here's the thing, for a lot of players, I understand why bots are not fun. And I will say for myself, yeah, they are a suboptimal solution, but at this point in the game, what better options do we have, And also from the perspective of a casual player, this really actually does help them in terms of getting situated on the game a little bit more. I've talked to some people who really don't, check YouTube or anything, and they just play video games now and again. And I've had some buddies that have picked up PUBG, and they really like it. And I can only imagine how devastating it would be if they were only playing against, sweaty pros all day long. So to think that bots are an entirely negative addition is just, I think, kind of silly. But let's give the devil his due. I'm going to roll with that argument that bots have ruined the game. Let's take that apart a bit. The PUBG bots are predicated on the idea that they can at least in some sense simulate what a real game is like and trying to emulate players like a real human being as close as physically possible. And they also act as an intermediate buffer for players who don't want to literally sweat all day long playing PUBG and maybe want to just have a little bit of casual fun with their friends. So it's pretty much a no-brainer for hardcore gamers that have been playing PUBG for a long time. Of course they're not going to like this. Why would they? They've already gotten to that echelon where they can sort of hang with the big dogs in a sense, and they can, play against skilled players, and maybe they're not going to dominate every game, but, you can play against players of your skill or slightly higher and continue to get better. And when you add bots in, you pretty much just, there's no challenge left. PUBG has officially mentioned that they designed the bots to be in a way where the better you are at the game, then the less bots you're going to encounter, but I really don't think that's how it works. I don't think that there's enough of a player base or enough nuance in the lobbies to actually predict that sort of thing. I think what it comes down to is how many bots you get is basically how much traffic is on at that point in time. I can play a game in the middle of the night and have like 60 or 70 bots, and if I play during peak hours, I might only have a match with 5 or 10 bots. And then you might ask yourself, okay, well, if bots in theory can fill up an infinite number of lobbies, then why don't we have map selection? And I guess the reasoning behind that would be, let's say you have 100 players just to make it, just to keep the number simple. And if you divide that over 4 maps, would it be better to have each individual player be able to pick their map and maybe only have 10 or 20 real players and the rest be bots? Or would you rather consolidate all of those real players as much as you can into one game and then potentially fill the rest or whatever is in the gaps with bots? When you lay it out that way, honestly, both options kind of suck. And that's why I'm saying that bots are a suboptimal solution, but it's the problem that we're facing right now, that you can't just say get rid of bots and expect that not to have catastrophic effects on the game. If they got rid of bots, then normal matches would literally not function. Or you could say that's fine, and then you just add solo and ranked playlists, but then more or less we're back to the exact same position we were in 2 months ago when they added bots, is that the base again is spread too thin. The game's gotten too big for itself, and I've only been able to come with really one viable solution for this. It's not new content, although that stuff is appreciated. It's not new progression systems or anything like that. Before I discuss the solution, I want to just tackle the last big problem, which is cheaters. Let's be honest with ourselves. Cheaters have plagued this game and many other online shooters and just games in general since really day one, but it's the way it's being dealt with and handled that is quite different than others. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly how cheats work and how they get through the system and how that system could be improved. I don't think very many of us at all watching this video actually understand how cheats are developed and how they get through these anti-cheat systems at all. It'd be very ignorant for us to assume that we do. We know very little about it, to be honest. One thing we do know, however, is that cheats as a concept are never really going to be gone, but it seems like PUBG just really gets the short end of the stick in a lot of ways. Despite all of their efforts with anti-cheat and adding new systems and implementing all these sorts of things, the problem doesn't really seem to have improved at all. And I'm going to be straight up honest about this. I don't think the cheating situation has improved in years, to be honest with you. And it's kind of strange because a game like Fortnite, which again, say what you want about Fortnite, although I really don't see cheating being as big of a problem in that game. I do see them from time to time, but it's not running rampant like it is in PUBG or in Warzone for that matter. And I also know it's not as simple as just implementing Fortnite's anti-cheat system into PUBG. That's not really how that works, but it seems like they're doing something right as far as that angle is concerned over there that PUBG hasn't done or isn't doing at all. And I've interviewed cheaters on this channel before as well to sort of really feel like what goes through their minds and understand why they do the things they do. And, every individual story is different, but one common theme I see is that they were able to cheat for, I don't know, multiple months at a time and not get banned. Some of the cheats were more malevolent than others, but for the most part, they remained at least non-banned for a significant period of time. It just seems that these cheats evolve and PUBG is always 2 steps behind. They'll catch up to cheats that were happening months and months ago, but by that point, there's already an entire new arsenal that all of the cheaters are using, and it's really baffling. And I think the first step we need to take in addressing cheaters is understanding and acknowledging the fact that they're never going to be completely gone. We're never going to, let's say, be in a timeline where video games do not have any cheaters and they're 100% proof like that. Video games are complicated, and ways to get into them are also just as complex. But we can certainly take steps to stifle the amount of cheaters that are actually able to manifest in your games. Now, I'm going to talk about the only solution that I really know how to address for this game. Now, they can keep adding new maps and new content for us hardcore players to enjoy, and, you know, that's fine, at least for the time being, and I think we'd continue to enjoy that stuff for those of us who actually like playing the game. I've enjoyed playing this game, I'd say within the past month, more than I have in a long time. You know, like the fun factor and the spark has actually come back for me personally. I know I can't speak for everybody, but I've been enjoying the game. However, that being said, I think they want to regrow their player base or re-attract players that maybe have never, you know, been interested before. I'm just going to say it, at this point in time, I think it's time to make a new game. It doesn't need to be called PUBG 2 or anything corny like that. They can just make an entirely new entity. It can still be called PUBG, but, you know, they can tweak it however they like. I just think a new game, because obviously the game's evolved a lot, and taking all those fundamental concepts but rebuilding them from the ground up, because PUBG, the way it was built, was pretty scuffed. We all know that. I mean, that's part of its infamous story. But a chance to rebuild the game we love from the ground up, you know, getting rid of, or at least minimizing a lot of the biggest problems it's facing, and maybe starting anew to have a new anti-cheat system and all this sort of stuff. Well, it's not going to get rid of all the problems entirely. No video game ever is going to be problem-free, but it can at least maybe start on a fresh foot. So many BR games have come and gone that have tried to be realistic or even encapsulate at all what PUBG was really able to capture, and none of them have successfully done it, in my opinion. And I think that there is room for them to improve on the original formula that they brought to the table. Of course, it would take a lot of work, and it would probably be some time before we see it, but I truly think the next biggest step, if this game wants to remain relevant for some time to come, is to honestly develop a new game. Now, we do know Glenn Schofield's PUBG game is coming, although that is only going to be a single-player experience. I'm talking like sort of what we're used to in PUBG, you know, the main part of the game, and redeveloping that I think would be a good idea. But listen, I care about this game a lot. It is really special to me. It's changed my life in a lot of ways. It's pretty much given me a career, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have you've made tons of friends on this, or you've had a lot of your gaming experiences defined by this game. Maybe you used to watch Shroud and a lot of other, you know, big streamers play this when it was early on. You got invested in it. Chances are, if you're still listening to this video, PUBG had a pretty profound effect on your life. Maybe you still have a very emotional connection to the game, or at least you did at one point in time, and maybe you're looking for something that will bring that spark back. I don't know exactly what that could be, but I think a new game is maybe a place to start. I didn't want this video to come off as ranty or negative or anything, but I definitely wanted to discuss these issues as honestly as I could, and I really want to know your guys' feedback. If you've been out of the game for a while, what sorts of things put you out of the game, and what would bring you back in? Have you tried out the new season, and if so, what do you think about it? But we're gonna see where this game goes in the future, and as far as I'm concerned, as long as you guys are enjoying the content, I'm still gonna continue to make videos on this, and as long as I'm enjoying the game, I'm gonna continue to post it as well, despite what happens to it. But I'm rooting for the best, man. I'm hoping that this game's future is still bright and will be relevant for some time to come, and I suppose only time will tell, but I think if these issues can be, let's say, resolved or at least mitigated, and if they do make a new game, then we could see a true PUBG resurgence or renaissance. It's happened to many games before, and I think it's possible for this game. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. If you did enjoy the video, give it a like rating, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and if you want to see more sort of just sit down discussion videos like this as well, I do enjoy doing this. It's kind of therapeutic for me, so if you'd like to see it more, then definitely let me know down below. But anyways, guys, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next live stream or the next video. Take it easy, everybody, and peace out.